This is a no bullshit intro. Shadows of Doubt is a new early access detective simulation game, and I swear to God, it is one of the most ambitious games I've played in 2023. I've already sunk a ton of time into this game, both on my Twitch stream and offline, and I have got thoughts about Shadows of Doubt. Before we start swirling around in the creases of my brain, I just want to give a quick thank you to both Coal Powered Games and Fireshine Games. Thank you so much for the key and for taking a chance on small creators like myself. It seriously means a lot. All right, now let's talk about the good, the bad, and the bugs in Shadows of Doubt. Shadows of Doubt is a procedurally generated stealth/detective simulation game set in a retro-futuristic cyberpunk 1980s. You play as a down-on-their-luck detective taking on randomly generated odd jobs and solving complex, also randomly generated murder cases. Oh god, Cameron's dead. Cameron had miniguns and still died. Okay, so he clogged his toilet before he died. Is that an important thing to know? He's got fingerprints on the plunger, so he pooped large before he died. He was gripping the seat. He was gripping the toilet seat. So not only did he clog it, he was like locked in. Now, procedural generation tech is not actually new, but it's the level of intricacy and immersion that Shadows of Doubt puts on display, which is where this game really starts to shine. This is much more akin to Dwarf Fortress in its level of simulation, from businesses, people's interests, relationships, jobs, the lore of the city that you inhabit, than it is Minecraft, where it's spilling out an endless but make it your own type of world. The city feels lived in because NPCs are actually living in it. They have needs and motivations and schedules, and, for the most part, don't give you any respect or time of day that you would think is due to a main character trying to solve a crime. I hope I'm not understating how technically impressive it is that every building is fully realized. You can go to every floor, into every apartment, and rifle through every sock drawer of every NPC. Okay, so what's good about the game then? Depth, detail, immersion.
We're sorry, please try again.
Depth, detail, immersion, and player freedom. Once your city is fully generated, you can just kind of do whatever you want. I didn't leave my starting apartment for over 20 real-time minutes because I was just so enraptured by opening every drawer and cupboard. I like it. I like it a lot. Shadows of Doubt does a great job of weaving the mundane throughout every area, which grounds you in the world despite the art style of the game. You can do in-depth research on every single citizen in the city, learning everything from their unique fingerprint, to their blood type, to their shoe size. Should they get wrapped up in a crime, it will all be important, but you could just as easily be wasting your time learning everything about a dude named Karam Mayo who owns a laundromat that has nothing to do with the murdered man next door, other than the fact that they're neighbors and on the same antidepressant. The game's caseboard system is an amazing resource, but that's really all it is, a resource. You can log and connect any info that you might think is relevant on the board, but the game isn't going to tell you whether you're wasting your time or not chasing down dead-end leads. The caseboard is just a tool that either lets you look like you know what you're doing, or like you'd really like to talk about the mail.
Look at this.
Jesus Christ,
That right there is the mail. Now let's talk about the mail. Can we talk about the mail, please, Mac?
Now, one thing worth mentioning is that even though it can be long, I highly recommend playing the tutorial mission offered at the start of the game. It'll help you get a handle on all the kind of weird controls and mechanics that the game has, and thanks to the randomized nature of everything, a fair amount of the tutorial will be unique for your playthrough only. Don't feel like being a hard-boiled private detective? Just wander around, bribe people for information or door codes so that you can steal stuff and pad your bank account at the pawn shop. Lean into the cyberpunk elements and install sync discs into yourself to give yourself random abilities or perks like being addicted to soda or giving yourself universal basic income, just for existing. Take random jobs off of notice boards like a cigarette and black coffee fueled witcher, but instead of slaying monsters or solving crimes, you're throwing food in a random civilian's face and snapping a picture of them so that you can get paid by the sicko that asked you to do it in the first place. While you chart your own course in the game, you might find yourself just lost in the neon and smog-drenched visuals. Despite the low-poly voxel aesthetic, Shadows of Doubt has a distinct visual flair and it sets the tone really well along with a pretty decent, unobtrusive synth soundtrack. The time that I have spent in Shadows of Doubt has flown by. I think one of the biggest testaments to this game is just its raw potential of the stories that you're able to tell and how engrossing it just is to be in the world. I think this is only going to get better and improve as the game works its way through early access. And speaking of early access, the devs have a clear roadmap of plans laid out and they've been hotfixing and patching this game like crazy based on community feedback. Bugs that I encountered during my first stream were literally fixed by my next stream 2 days later. The more time and updates Shadows of Doubt gets, the better and more fully realized it will continue to be. But we aren't at that point yet. We do still need to talk about the bad and the bugs in Shadows of Doubt because they're there. I think that the biggest challenge facing this game and its success right now is just pure optimization. It just simply should run better than it does, especially on a halfway decent machine. The simulation is very resource greedy, and the game often hitches or crawls down to single-digit frame rates, especially if you're making a particularly demanding request, whether it be scrubbing through an entire day's worth of security footage, or even if there's just a lot of NPCs in the street that you're walking through. Now, you can choose from a variety of city sizes, and while I know we all want to choose very large to start, it might be wiser just to settle on a medium or even a small-sized city to avoid burning your real house down while your CPU tries to crunch all the numbers. There are some quality of life fixes that are needed as well. Sometimes the caseboard will lose functionality and you can suddenly no longer zoom in and out. Drawing and connecting lines is also bugged out for me, and I've been unable to connect evidence as desired. I've also encountered a recurring issue where I've been unable to open my map in the overworld until I relaunched my game. One of the more persistent and, unfortunately, harder to resolve issues is the game's vent system. Every single building has an entire HVAC system connecting rooms, and sometimes that's the only way that you can get into a secured area. So, when I want to crawl through a vent like a sussy little Among Us, it can get complicated when the game's procedural generation gets a little silly and starts generating multiple fake exits leading just into the disturbing back rooms under the map of the game, or I get trapped in a complete dead end and my detective literally freezes to death because the building has the air conditioning blasting in the middle of January. Now, others online have cited issues with either phone trees or dialogue options not functioning properly and completely dead-ending cases. This sounds super frustrating. I haven't encountered it myself, which is why you're looking at me and not B-roll, but it sounds like a bummer. Now, despite these bugs and frustrations, I have a sneaking suspicion, given at the rate the developers have been putting out hot fixes for this game, that by the time this video even goes live, a lot of the problems that I've been mentioning are already going to be in Shadows of Doubt's rearview mirror. Pretty cool. So, what gives, Spooky? Is Shadows of Doubt worth it? Well, if you're talking to me, I would say wholeheartedly and with my whole chest, yes. Here, I'll even try. Yes. But in all reality, things are really going to depend on your personal level of tolerance for early access growing pains and your ability to accept a moderate level of jank, bugs, and occasional weirdness. If you can handle that, you are in for a great time with Shadows of Doubt. But if you're a more wary person, I'd say probably give it a few months. Keep an eye on updates and how things are going with the game. And honestly, if you're watching this video right now and you'd like for me to cover major updates that are coming to Shadows of Doubt, I'd be happy to do that. You just got to tell me to do it in the comments. Now, with all this said, I think that Coal Power Games is really onto something special with Shadows of Doubt. The entire time I've been recording this video, I've just been chomping at the bit to stop recording this video so I can go and play more of the game. So I'm going to go do that. But before I do that, if you like these review videos on this channel, please consider liking this one specifically. It helps me a lot. And if you really like the content, consider subscribing to the channel as well. We're always going to have more content on the way, including a video like this, where I took a look at a procedurally generated RPG that I thought was pretty good as well. Okay, now, gang, please always continue to be good, be careful, be good and careful. I'm going to go play more Shadows of Doubt. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.